Usually I make bullet points of everything that I want to talk about in a video, but I am healing through something and I thought that it might be a good idea to talk it through with you in real time. I think that a lot of people in the healing community, myself included, make videos after we learn, the lessons, after we go through the healing, after the process, after we go through everything. And while that's great because we can give hindsight about what we went through, what we learned, how everything went, what we experienced, I think a lot of the times it can be really beneficial to watch somebody else who's going through something that maybe you're going through as well, and see that you're not alone, and see that you can relate to somebody and maybe connect with them and see how they're coping and how they're going through it. And I just want to be real with you. So today I'm going to talk about something that I'm currently healing through, something that's going on in my life live right now, that I am working through at the moment, and just kind of be real and chit chat about it and talk about it, because I don't think that there's enough of that in this community. So like I said, I don't have a structure layout for this. I'm just going to kind of talk. So it might be all over the place, but anyway, so I am going to be talking about mother wounds and inner child wounds, I guess. I've been in the healing community, I guess, for maybe 2 years, like deeply healing. I always knew that I had parent issues, but I grew up knowing that it was all my dad. My dad was a problem. My dad was the issue. My dad was, so bad to us, which is true. I'm not saying that that's not true. My dad had a really bad drinking problem. My dad was abusive. My dad went to prison when I was 5 for killing someone drunk driving. So I did have really bad father issues. I've been aware of that since I was very young. Growing up, I idolized my mom. Like, I thought from a very young age that my mom was the most amazing person on this planet. I wanted to be just like her. There was nobody better than my mom. I did everything for my mom. Like, she was my idol in my life. Like, my mom could do no wrong. I was very, very, very close to my mom growing up. Fast forward to when I was a teenager, my dad got out of prison and, still wasn't great. Still isn't great. When I was like 14, he tried to have a relationship with me. And at first, my mom was like all on board for it. She pushed it. She's like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll support you no matter what. But then as soon as I started having a relationship with my dad, like, then my mom did not support me at all. Like, she really, really just kind of turned at that point. And while me and my dad don't have a relationship at all now, at that age, I deserved to explore that and learn that for myself. And she was not letting me do that at all. And even now, like today, I am 27 years old now, and she will say that I chose my dad over her and that I ruined her life because I went and lived with my dad's girlfriend, which she kicked me out and forced me to do that. I had no choice at 14 years old. But anyways, so I recently made some connections as far as healing through these things, and I think that sharing these could be really helpful to some other people out there, because they're dots that I connected that I found to be really profound in my healing journey. I'm aware that everything that you know comes from the first 5 to 7 years of your life. Everything that you learn from watching your parents. How they behave, how they act, what they do, how they act in an argument, how they act when they go to the grocery store, the things that they say, their outlook on the world. Everything that you learn from watching your parents and observing them. And it's not like an intentional thing on either end. This is just called childhood conditioning. So I learned everything from my mother, right? So from a very young age, my mom was constantly telling us how she worked so hard for my brother and I, how she, had to work. She was constantly feeding to us how she worked 2 jobs to support us, and how we had no money, and how we were poor, and how we struggled, and how we were, how we had no money and everyone else had money but us, and how my dad was this evil person, and how like evil never dies, referring to my dad, and like all of these negative things about my dad, and how she was constantly feeding to me how much she did for me and my brother. And I think that's why I idolized her so much, is because in that 5 to 7 age frame, where you're in the most, like, your brain is in what's called a theta brainwave state, so it's like a sponge and you're absorbing everything. So when you're repetitively told something, you grow up with that belief until you reprogram that belief. And so I was constantly fed this belief that, she did all of these things and she's just a super mom and she does everything, which I'm not saying that my mother wasn't great. My mother was great. My mother did work very hard for my brother and I, and she did work. We maybe were in poverty and we did have a hard life and we did struggle. However, I do not think that that's something that you should keep feeding to a young child, and I don't think that that's something that you should make a young child feel guilty for. Those are things that I see as an adult that I don't think that were right of her to do. But now I'm growing up and I'm seeing like that might not have been right. Another thing is, to this day, my mom will always say how I was an angel, how I never did anything wrong, which I was such a good kid. I was constantly doing extra chores just to make my mom's life easier. I just wanted to make her happy. I was always chasing her approval. I always wanted to make her, her life easier, because I knew how hard she worked and I knew that, her life was really hard. So I wanted to make it easier for her. So I was constantly helping her, and I never talked back to her. I was always such a good kid. I never got grounded. I never did anything wrong up until high school, until our relationship kind of, was not so great. But to this day, like, she'll tell you that I was such a good kid, right? Recently, my mom and I have cut ties with each other, and I received the box of my childhood, right? I think most of us have a box of everything from our childhood, and most of mine is pictures that I drew, because I've always been an artistic kid, and like notes or letters that I wrote her. And what I found to be really, really upsetting, because I've never seen a lot of these, like most of it I had seen before, but a lot of this I had never seen. There were at least 15 to 20 out of the like maybe 30 pictures, including the ones that like I drew and painted. 15 to 20 of them were things of me apologizing to her and saying sorry, when all I've ever known is that I was such a good kid. All I ever remember is being such a good kid. All I ever remember is like cleaning and helping to make her life easier, because I knew how hard she worked and I wanted to make things easier on her, which as a young kid should not be your priority. As a young kid, you should want to be playing with your friends, and you should want to, your focus shouldn't be making your parents' life easier. Your focus should be being a kid. Why? First of all, why was that my number one focus in life as a little kid? Two, why were there so many apology letters to my mom? And these are like little kid handwriting, things spelled wrong. You could tell I was very, very, very young. In crayon, like very sloppy, very like letter backwards, like young kid writing, "I'm sorry, Mom," for stupid stuff. And "I hope you forgive me. Do you still love me?" Like, very heartbreaking to see that. A, why does she still have it? Like, that's not something that I would keep. B, there were so many. There was so many. And as somebody who studies these things, and as somebody who has children of her own, that was so heartbreaking to me. And it really connected a lot of dots for me as far as my parental issues, my mother and father wounds. They weren't all father wounds. They weren't all what I was fed as a kid, right? I had these aha moments in my healing. I was like, I was wrong. Everything that I thought was wrong. Everything that I've been healing, and I've had this feeling in healing that like I'm missing something, right? I've done massive healing. I've made leaps, and I've done all of this amazing healing work, and it's changed my whole life. But there's always felt like something's missing, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I got this box of stuff, and all of these dots connected for me, and it was like, it wasn't all just my dad. It was my mom. I was conditioned so deeply. She never wanted me to see how she really was. She never wanted me to, find out that she was the way that she was. She wanted me to continue thinking she was this amazing person. And on a side note, with me idolizing her so much and wanting to be just like her so much, I did turn out just like her. I was also to such a T. I not only was I a broke single young mom, but she had my dad in prison, right? I also had my children's father in prison. I was so much like her to a T. And I also was such a hard worker. And I also was a server. I was so much like my mother. I had to unlearn so much because then I started freaking out. I'm like, am I toxic? Am I a bad mom? Because, like, clearly she messed me up in the head, and I was terrified to mess my kids up in the head. And I had this whole existential crisis of, like, I'm so much like my mother. But I'm so grateful, as painful as this experience is, right? I'm so grateful to have been able to learn these things, because I could have gone my whole life without ever healing that. My mom and I have not actually talked in months. We don't have a connection right now. And I can see, because I'm doing so much healing work, and I can look from the outside at the things that she's still continuing to do. I can see the things that she still is doing that are extremely toxic, and I feel for her because I can see that she has a lot of childhood wounds. I can see that she has so much that she needs to heal, but she chooses not to. She chooses to still do this toxic behavior, and now I can see I was conditioned as a child, I was manipulated as a child, and I wasn't treated right. And another, certain things, like I had always been bothered by the fact that I don't remember most of my childhood. And the memories that I do have, and I brought this up to her once, and it did cause a huge argument, rightfully so. I can see how she was offended, but the memories that I have from my childhood are mainly good ones of me and my brother at our camp with our grandparents. Those are like the memories that I have. I don't have many good memories with my mom. And that always bothered me because I was like, well, I had heard that, you can't remember your childhood if you have childhood trauma. But I was like, my mom was such a good mom, so why can't I remember it? And now it's all making sense, and I'm connecting these dots, and I understand. And that's the thing that I learned with my narcissist ex when I studied narcissism so deeply, is when narcissists know the gig is up, when they know that you've caught on and that they're not fooling you anymore, the mask drops. They don't even try to hide it anymore. I learned that from my ex, and now I've learned it with my mother. She let her mask drop, and she doesn't even try to hide it anymore. Not to me, at least. I can see her doing it to other people. It's sad, and I would love to be able to help her heal, but it's not safe for my energy. You have to put your own energy first, and if that means not being around a toxic parent, then it means not being around a toxic parent, and that's okay. I know my mom was going through a lot when I was a kid. I firsthand know how hard it is to be a single mom with, the kid's dad in prison. That was really hard for me. I know it was hard for her, struggling financially, all of these things. Because when you're in that situation, you're attracting more negative things because you have a negative outlook. So you're asking the universe for more negative things. I know what it's like. I've been there. But I was lucky enough, not lucky, I chose to heal. And that's why her and I are in two different spots in life right now. And I don't know if she'll ever choose to heal. I hope she does, but it's not my responsibility to save her. And that was another thing too, is I never wanted to leave her behind. So I was like 1 foot in the door of making my dreams come true, but I didn't want to hurt her by sharing my experience in life on the internet, because it does, make her not look great. But in order for me to help other people heal, this is my story. I do need to share it because other people will connect with me and resonate with me and know that they're not alone. And, I can help share how I healed through these things with other people to help them heal. And I can't tiptoe around her in order to save her feelings when she's continuously hurting me and not healing. The hardest part about it is having kids, because, my kids don't understand. to give my mom the benefit of the doubt, she did have a hard life. She, from what I know, didn't have a great childhood. And then we lost my brother in 2020, which was really hard for her. And growing up, it was just her, me, and my brother. So I can only imagine how that felt. But I also lost my brother, who was my best friend. That was hard. I chose the route of healing. I chose the route to better myself because I was also not on a good path. I was toxic. I wasn't a great person. I made bad choices. I wasn't great to my partner or my partners at the time. I wasn't great to, my friends. I wasn't the best mom I could be. But in life, you get two choices. You can continue in your same toxic patterns, or you can choose to recognize them and heal and become better and attract more. Because the better you are, the better situations you attract. The more toxic you are, the more toxic situations you attract. And I have firsthand experienced both ends of this. So not to give her the benefit of the doubt, but I get why she did the things that she did. We're all doing the best we can with where we're at, but I didn't deserve the things that happened to me. I didn't deserve to be conditioned. I didn't deserve the childhood that I had, and I'm not saying that I had the worst childhood out there, but I was lied to and deceived my entire childhood, and I'm just now realizing it at 27. And I'm grateful to be realizing it. I'm grateful that I get this opportunity to now heal these things. I'm grateful I get to heal out loud to help other people. She actually made the choice a few months ago not to talk to me, and when that choice was made, I did decide to leave her behind in my healing journey because I can't progress when she's pulling me back with her negative energy, and I knew that. And I had known that, and I just wasn't ready to accept it. But then, we had some stuff happen that I finally was forced to acknowledge the fact that I'm never going to progress if I don't leave her behind. And I can honestly say that I have felt lighter since I've done that. Not that it's been the easiest thing to do, because of course we all want to have a parent, especially now that I don't speak to either of my parents, but I'm still happy. And I'm learning to, through meditation, mother my inner child. And that has been so helpful and so beautiful and very, very healing. I highly recommend doing that. I had to recognize in myself some things that weren't right. After, I received that box a few days ago. And, back a few years ago when I used to go through bouts of depression, I had certain symptoms like I wasn't eating right. And I wasn't on top of keeping things as tidy as I usually do, and I just felt a lot more like lethargic. I had certain symptoms that in hindsight I would recognize after I went through these bouts of depression. And so after receiving this box, I started noticing these symptoms. Didn't feel depressed, but I noticed the same symptoms, and I was like, okay, I clearly have a wound that's like rising that needs to be seen and felt. So I sat with it and I did some meditating. I did an inner child meditation, and I really sat and processed things, and I made these connections that I'm sharing with you now. And it's been really profound for me, and I felt called to share them with you and heal live with you, because I feel there's somebody out there who could benefit from hearing this and seeing this and maybe make their own connections with their childhood healing. I really hope that you were able to get something from this today. I hope that you can see that healing is a never-ending journey. Even the big people that you see like Tony Robbins and all of these big name spiritual people, they're constantly healing. Nobody's ever fully healed. You will be healing until the day that you die. So please don't ever think or strive for a completely healed version of you, because that's not something that's attainable. But to be a little bit more healed every day is something that is attainable and something that you should strive to do. Working on yourself and working on healing yourself is the first way to get there. So I highly suggest taking that first step or that next step, and doing your work to heal yourself so that you can be better for yourself, for your kids, for your friends, for your partner. And you never know, you may inspire somebody else to start their healing journey and become a better, happier, more fulfilled person. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I post videos like this every week. I hope that you will stick around, subscribe, like it, and let me know down below if you gained something out of this video. Other than that, I will see you in the next one. Bye.